and welcome to week 8 of our course. This week, we will discuss one of the most important things that we should consider when designing any research project: the ethics of the research project. At present, as researchers, whenever we want to conduct any research study that involves human subjects, we have to seek approval from institutional review boards that then assesses our research design and our research protocols to ensure that it meets rigorous ethical standards. Researchers have to establish that their research study will be conducted in a way that minimizes potential harm to research subjects, where every research subject is treated with respect and allowed to choose if where they want to participate in the study, and where any research subject considered to be a member of a vulnerable population, such as, say, pregnant women, children, or minors, or prison inmates, are afforded extra protections that prevent them from being exploited in any way. However, it is extremely important, especially as social workers, to realize that this was not always the case. There are various examples of research studies that conducted egregious acts of human rights violations against often unwitting research subjects who were exploited in the name of the greater good. You may already be familiar with some of these examples, but it is still worthwhile to review them when we talk about ethics in research. The first example is that of the Tuskegee syphilis experiment, which started in 1932 in Alabama. The Public Health Services then worked with the Tuskegee Institute and diagnosing hundreds of African American sharecroppers with syphilis. But they did not tell the individuals about their diagnosis. Instead, they designed a study where where the researchers planned to observe and record the natural progression of syphilis among this population, specifically black men. They conducted this study without seeking approval or any proper informed consent from the research subjects. The researchers told the men that they were being treated for bad blood, but they never actually provided any of the men with the proper treatment that was needed to cure their illness, even after a cure, penicillin, was discovered. Rather, the men with syphilis were simply being watched until they died, and their bodies were examined for ravages of the disease. The men were asked to refrain from seeking medical care anywhere else and were given fake treatments such as spinal taps. Although the study was projected to last 6 months, it actually lasted 40 years. The men were deliberately misled on what the purpose of the study was, and they weren't given the information required to make an informed decision about whether to participate in this study. The researchers published several journal articles on the health effects of untreated syphilis. It wasn't until Peter Buxton, a trained social worker who was an employee of the Public Health Services, along with others, registered official protests on ethical grounds and finally had to leak the story to the news media. There was a national outcry about the research study, leading to finally terminating the study. Other examples of unethical research were the medical experiments that were conducted without the consent of patients and research subjects, with blatant disregard for the patient's suffering or even survival. After the war in 1946, in Nuremberg, 23 men were tried for their crimes specific to this issue. One of the major outcomes of the Nuremberg trials were the principles that were outlined in the court. These principles form the foundation for contemporary medical practice and research. I urge you to read the Nuremberg Code that is linked below to learn more about these principles. There are some additional examples of social research injustices in the slides for this week, and I urge you to read more into some of these examples. These examples of unethical research practices from the past, or even the recent past and present, bring us to the discussion of what is being currently done to protect research subjects. Currently, any university or a hospital that plans to conduct research studies with human subjects and wishes to receive federal research support must establish an institutional review board, which I mentioned at the beginning of this video. The Institutional Review Board, or the IRB, takes into consideration some key factors when deciding whether to approve a research study or not. The slides for this week, as well as the reading, the chapter 5 of the book, goes into details about what some of these key considerations are. IRB members may comprise of individuals from different professions, including researchers, doctors, academicians, and local community representatives. IRB comprise of individuals that voice scientific as well as non-scientific concerns about the research project. And typically, they must comprise of at least one member who can represent the perspective of the research participants. Most often, an IRB will ask a research team to revise their proposal if they have any ethical concerns. If there are any changes in the research design along the way, it is the duty and responsibility of the researchers to keep the IRB informed about what these changes are and why they were made. IRBs reserve the right to withdraw their consent or their approval of any research study at any time. So IRB approvals or reviews may be time consuming, but they ensure a much more just process of evaluation. For this week, for your discussion board post, please find an article that examines the ethical concerns in research. The instructions for the discussion board post will be below. Please let me know if you have any questions. Thank you for watching this video and have a great week ahead.